One-point perspective is a cool and easy way to make three-dimensional objects. Make your objects pop right off the page. We're going to look at that right now. We're going to use these steps for our one-point perspective. First, let's gather our supplies. You'll need some paper, some tape, a ruler or straight edge, some pencils, a marker, and an eraser. I like a metal ruler, but you can use a wooden ruler or any straight edge. Now we're going to tape down our paper to our table. Once your paper is taped down, you can draw a horizontal line straight across the center of your paper. This is going to be your horizon line. Once you have your horizon line down, you're going to pick a point on that line and draw a dot. That will be your vanishing point. Your vanishing point is extremely important. This is where all your lines are going to meet, so make sure you can see it nice and clearly. Once you have your vanishing point, then we're going to start on the lower left-hand corner by drawing a simple rectangle. This particular rectangle doesn't have to be perfect, but I recommend using your ruler so you can get nice, crisp lines. After you have your rectangle, then we can begin giving our shape some depth. In order for us to make our shape three-dimensional, we're going to look for the corners of our shape. Since we drew a rectangle, it should be easy to find those corners. Once you have those corners, you're going to line your ruler up, one end with the corner, the other end with your vanishing point. These will be your vanishing lines. If you're just beginning, I would recommend drawing a line from each corner back to your vanishing point. So for our rectangle, that means you'll have 4 lines. But if you look closely at your rectangle, you'll see that some of the corners that are far away will not be visible. You can avoid drawing these lines, or you can just erase them later. For now, I'm going to skip that step. As you can see, I have my 3 vanishing lines. If I look at the lower left corner, that line would be behind my shape and would be invisible unless my shape were clear. So I don't have to draw it. Now you want to give your shape some depth. You can determine what that depth is going to be by drawing parallel lines to your original shape. So if we started with a rectangle, we're going to draw lines that are parallel to that rectangle. Make sure you're using your ruler to draw nice, crisp, parallel lines. Once you have finished that, you're done. All you need to do is erase the extra lines that go beyond your parallel lines. Now your shape is three-dimensional. That's it. Let's look at some other shapes. We'll start with a circle. Since there's no corners on a circle, you're going to go from the edge on either side. And then we'll look at a more complex shape. This is going to be more of an organic polygon. Well, you'll find what seems to be the corners and draw your vanishing lines the same way. After you finish these shapes, we can add some shading and value to give your shape more depth and realism. Go back to that original guide and check out the steps. Take a look and see if you can follow along. Now that we have an understanding of some basic one-point perspective, let's use it to draw a cityscape. We're going to start our paper the same way. Let's tape it down, draw our horizon line, and add our vanishing point. After we have our vanishing point, I'm going to draw a large rectangle on the left-hand side of my paper. I'm going to use a number of tools to experiment with drawing this rectangle. Just in case you don't have a ruler available, you can use any straight edge. The edge of this book works perfectly well. After you have your rectangle drawn, you're going to draw your vanishing lines. Remember, this is going to go from each corner back to your original vanishing point. I'm going to use this metal ruler to see how this works. Remember, we're drawing a cityscape, so I'm going to use some simple vertical lines to separate my shape. It's going to have depth, and each shape is going to represent its own building. Remember, these vertical lines are going to be parallel to my original shape. After we have the left side completed, I'm going to go to the right side. I'm going to draw another rectangle representing the side of a building. This one's going to be a little bit smaller. Continue those steps as we discussed before. Draw your vanishing line, separate your shapes, draw your parallel lines, and start to see your buildings form. Now that we have the two sides of our cityscape, we're going to start to adjust our buildings. As you know, every building is going to be a different size. So we're going to look at the shapes that we have and adjust the size. Some of our buildings will be taller, some of our buildings will be shorter, some of them might even be further set back on the street. How you adjust your building is completely up to you, but I'm going to take a closer look and focus on how I do mine. As I focus and I finish up, I'm going to erase any guidelines that might be getting in the way. As I start to finish up, I'm going to think about the details that I need to add. Do buildings have doors, windows? Are there any details on the sides or fronts of the building? Do I want there to be a sidewalk or maybe a side street? Do I want to put anything else in the street? As I finish up, I'm going to start to refine my buildings. Once I'm finished, I can take out a marker and outline all of my buildings. As we saw earlier, if you want to add shading and value to give your buildings more depth, that's completely okay. Or you can take out some colored pencils or crayons and give your building some color to really stand out. Remember, this is your cityscape. You can make your buildings look however you want them to look.